What's going on YouTube? It's Reed with RCG Car Reviews here, and today I am bringing you all a video that is long overdue, one that I should have done going on a year ago now. This is going to serve, I guess, as the official introductory tour to our 2015 Jaguar F-Type V6S. So, before I start rambling, let's go ahead and hop inside and start it up, which is that whole thing is just probably what's the best about this car. But anyway, here's the key. This is Jaguar's, if it'll focus, this is Jaguar Land Rover's corporate key now. They all have this exact same thing going on. You got lock unlock, you can turn your lights on, I guess if you want to find your car in a parking lot at night or whatever, and then trunk release as well. And right now you may notice that the spoiler is in the up position. We thought that when you bought the car that you could do that like anytime, even if you were driving around town. Turns out for US spec cars, you cannot do that unless the vehicle is in accessory mode, and then you press the spoiler button. This is known as cleaning mode. And then the second that you turn the car back on and start moving, the spoiler drops down until you hit 70 miles an hour, and then it'll pop back up, and then once you hit 55 again, the spoiler goes back down. So that's a quick little rundown on that. Of course, this does have smart key. Kind of a different setup, so I'll walk through that real fast. That's how you lock the car. You just shove the handle in, and then mirrors fold in just like that. And then to unlock it, you just press this little button right here. Handles pop out, mirrors come back out, and you can jump on in. So you're going to hear the radar detector in the car having a good old time as it does its startup sequence. So taking a look at the interior, it is the all black. Everything in here is black except for the copper colored accents that's on the paddles, the drive mode selector, as well as the engine start button right there in the center. So let's go ahead and put that engine start button to use, shall we? Of course, you are greeted with the Jaguar Leaper. The car right now has 22,889 miles. We bought it at the end of last October. That's October of 2017, with roughly 18,000 or so. So not a whole lot of miles put on the car, but it gets driven quite a bit. And then I believe if you close the door, yep, the engine start-stop button starts to beat like a heart, which is pretty cool. So foot on the brake, hit your engine start button, you get a gauge sweep. You can see the gauges are glowing red right now. That is because the car is in dynamic mode. But if you put the car back into normal mode, it quiets up the exhaust a little bit, which is dumb. Why would you ever want this car to be quiet? I mean, I guess if you're coming and going early in the morning or late at night, that makes sense. But yeah, the car sounds amazing. We'll go ahead and pop it back into dynamic mode, and we will take a look around the outside of the car. Obviously, this one is finished in all black everything except for the brake calipers and a few chrome trim bits like the grille surround and the badges and stuff like that. But a very stealthy look on this car. That was one of the things that initially drew us to this one. So kind of the backstory on this car. For those of you who may remember, my mom previously daily drove a 2015 Land Rover Range Rover Sport. It was an HSE with the 3-liter supercharged V6, and the lease was coming close to end. We'd actually started to have a few problems with the Range Rover, some electrical issues. I think the blind spot sensor computer module went out, which was like $1,000 some odd repair, and so we kind of started thinking about different things that could potentially replace it. And my entire family has always loved the way that the F-Type has looked. We loved the sound, loved the character. Just when the convertibles initially came out, we weren't the biggest fans, but then once we saw the coupes, it was like Jaguar had created the most beautiful car to ever come out of an automaker, period. And personally, I still believe that looks-wise, that is true. This is a stunningly beautiful car. Some people don't like it, and I don't know how that's possible, but I mean, I guess beauty's in the eye of the beholder, so I don't know. So starting off with the outside of this one, coming up toward the front end, this actually does have a front it's almost like the front half, but I guess you would call it the front quarter clear bra. So the headlights are done, front bumper, grille, lower fascia down there. The whole hood is done, as well as the backs of the mirrors, and then you can see right down here, it does have some rock guards, which are entirely too small. There's rock chips all around that that clear bra right there. So I don't really know why. It was not the best job that was done. The car had it on when we bought it. I'm glad that it has it, but I wish it was done better. So this one does have the black, I guess you would call them Y-spoke 19-inch rims. The front tires are 245/40 ZR19s. They're Pirelli P0s. Absolutely can't stand these tires. Really do not like them at all. They're not that great in the wet. They're not that great in the dry. I know they're a high-performance summer tire, but yeah, once these wear out, we'll definitely probably be throwing a set of Pilot Sport 4S's on it, because we do intend to have this car for quite a while. And I know that those tires are just kind of the best there is. The rears are 275/35 ZR19s, same Pirelli P0s. They've got, I mean, well over half their tread life left in them, but we've only put like 4,000 or 5,000 miles on the car in a year, or it'll be a year at the end of October. So yeah, definitely not driving it a whole lot. I mean, it gets driven around town quite a bit, but nothing really long distance. The farthest this car has gone is Dallas, which is like 2 hours away, so nothing major there. Taking a look at the brake calipers and the wheels, everything is clean right now, so that's why I wanted to take this opportunity to get this video out there. This car has phenomenal brakes. It'll stand on its nose practically stopping, but it definitely makes the brake dust. And you would think having black wheels, brake dust wouldn't be that noticeable, but ooh, you would be wrong. I thought it was going to be really easy to keep the wheels clean, but I mean, you drive this car for 5 minutes and the wheels already are brown. It's ridiculous. I can't stand it. It drives my OCD nuts. Speaking of OCD, the general paint color of this car is like, it's beautiful when it's clean. It is so stunning to look at when it's clean. And honestly, even when the car is dirty, it's really pretty too. It's such a head turner. But having a black car and being extremely OCD and into automotive detailing is kind of like your worst nightmare. It's a never-ending battle of, and I apologize if this just got some wind noise in it, a little gust of wind came. But yeah, a never-ending battle of avoiding scratches and swirls while also trying to keep the car clean. It does look pretty good right now. The car has actually undergone 2 paint corrections since we've had it. I've done both of those, and I can make a separate video on that process if you guys would be interested in seeing that. But the only real defect, major defect with the outside of the car is I don't know if you can tell how this reflection looks kind of rough and hazy, but the car previously did have some body work on this rear quarter panel or fender arch or whatever you want to call it, and it was not the best body work in the world. You can kind of see it right there where the sun is reflecting off the roof's edge of the house, or the edge, well, I don't know, words are hard. Anyway, wasn't great body work, but after the paint correction it did brighten up quite a bit. But the rest of the car, the paint is actually in really good shape. I'm pretty proud of how all that has come out. We did have the windows tinted. They were not tinted when we bought it. I have no idea what percentage the tint is. It looks really good, and it's not too dark inside the car, which is what we were worried about with this being a black on black on black on black car. There are also a few rock chips that are on the hood, but they were there before the clear bra was done, or paint protection film. I'll quit calling it clear bra. So that is up underneath that film. You can feel it, but you can't get it out. Really irritating. And the PPF does not come all the way to the edges of the panels. You can see the lines. So ideally, I would like to yank this all off, get everything like perfectly corrected, and then take it and have it professionally paint protection filmed. But that costs thousands on thousands of dollars, and the car is not perfect anyway. Taking a closer look at the front bumper, it's definitely not in perfect shape, but overall, I'd say this car is about 90% perfect. And for being 3 years old now and having 22,000 miles on it, I'd say that's pretty hard to beat, especially with it being black, because black shows everything. But if you look down here, you can definitely tell that the front end has been smacked down on the ground a couple times, but if you look closely, you can see that the majority of what's damaged is that paint protection film, and then obviously that lower splitter down there. That's just cheap plastic. You can replace if you want to, but nobody ever sees it, so what's the point? It definitely scrapes on anything. It even scrapes at the end of our driveway, and you can see how not steep of a dip that is. So you have to go angles everywhere, but that's okay. That's part of having a sports car like this, and it's so worth it. This car does have parking sensors front and rear. There's 2 in this black bar that go across the grille, and then there's 2 in each little side vent right there. And it is very useful because the front of this car is long, and it is a little bit hard to see. Taking a look at these little side vents here, they actually are functional, believe it or not. So are the vents on top of the hood, and if you look down through those, you can see the supercharged badge on the engine cover. So that's kind of cool. It took me a little while to notice that, but yeah, it was really, I don't know, it's just cool things like that that make this car so lovable. I've heard the Top Gear quote from Richard Hammond. I believe he was talking about the Maserati Quattroporte, and he said, "I don't care if this thing picks its nose and farts in bed, I love it." And that's kind of how I feel about this car. It's technically not my car, but we all 4 of us get to drive it and enjoy it, and it just puts a smile on your face even when you're in the crappiest of moods, and that is pretty priceless, honestly. So coming around to the back of the F-Type, this view right here is my favorite view of this car. It just looks, it has so much presence on the road. I don't know how many times we've had people stop us and ask what kind of car it is, if we like it, somebody's thinking about getting one, is it a good car? The answer is no, not really, but it's the best car in the world. At least that's my opinion. It's just, I don't know, this is, first time I drove this car, it instantly became a bucket list car for me. So you've got the chrome F-Type badge there, and then the S badge there. The S gives you still have that 3-liter supercharged V6, but instead of having the 340 horsepower, it bumps you up to 380 horsepower, and I think this thing has 339 pound-feet of torque. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm like 85% sure that's true. Reverse lights and fog lights are located down there on either rear corner. You do have, they are chrome, but there's just a lot of condensation built up because the car's been sitting here idling. But you do have dual exit, or the center exit exhaust, which, this could be unpopular opinion. I prefer the center exit exhaust as opposed to the looks of the quad exhaust on the R. I know the R is a complete beast and is absolutely insane, and I'd love to drive one and own one, but dollar for dollar, this is hard to beat. This car is just insane. It's not ridiculously fast, it's not super scary, it's actually a very confidence-inspiring car to drive. It does feel heavy, but it is a heavy car. It's like, I think it's going on 3,900 pounds, which for a 2-door sports car is pretty heavy, but it feels very planted, very connected to the road. Doesn't feel like it's going to try and snap the rear end out from underneath you at any given moment. I mean, if you poke it and prod it hard enough and piss it off, yeah, it's going to let loose and you're going to know about it. But at the same time, if you're using an ounce of common sense and not being a complete idiot, it's fine. So the rear brakes, in comparison to the front brakes, the rear calipers actually look pretty pitiful. But like I said, this car will stand on its nose basically to stop, so not a huge complaint there. You do have the chrome trim surrounding the windows, which I really like. I think looks very classy. This one does have blind spot warning, which is, I don't know if Jaguar makes an F-Type that doesn't have the blind spot monitoring, but if they do, they should change their mind about 3 years ago, because this car is impossible to see out of over your shoulder and check your blind spots. So you have to learn to trust that the blind spot warning real quick. Again, you can see a line right here where that paint protection film ends. I don't understand why that's a thing, but whoever put it on did not do a great job. This panel right here is also wrapped in PPF. Again, not well, you can see the edges, but it's there, and it helps. This car was actually a California car before we bought it. We bought it from Park Place Jaguar Land Rover in Grapevine, up by Dallas-Fort Worth Airport at the end of last October, and it was bitter cold the day we bought it, which is unusual for Texas, but I don't think it ever got out of the 30s. The Range Rover was actually in for service. It was due for its annual service because we never hit the mileage limit on it, and that's also when the blind spot computer module had gone out. We just kind of started looking online and we're like, could we make this work financially? And it actually ended up definitely being to our advantage to end the Range Rover's lease early and finance this. It was a certified pre-owned car and still is, so you get the warranty with all that. I'm not the most familiar with Jaguar's warranty for their certified pre-owned program, but it is there and it is nice to have if something should go wrong. So I'll go ahead and open up the hood real quick on the F-Type. And this was another cool thing. And I just vacuumed these black carpets last night, and you can already see that there's little bits of gravel tracked in there. The black carpets show absolutely everything, whether it be light or dark. It's just annoying. So the hood is a clamshell, but yeah, this is Jaguar Land Rover's corporate 3-liter supercharged V6. It's actually the same block as the 5-liter V8, it just has 2 less holes punched in it. So it is a little bit heavy and kind of antiquated in its design, but I don't care. It sounds amazing. It's just the best thing in the world. I don't know. I'm so attached to this car, you can't tell. You can see here is the wiring for the magnetic adaptable dampers that change with your drive modes, and it actually is a major difference in this car. It still rides rough no matter what because it's an F-Type S, but it's definitely not uncomfortable, and that's coming from my mom who daily drives this car. So go ahead and give it a quick rev so you might be able to hear a little bit of whine from the supercharger. So my ears could hear a little bit of whine. I don't know if the camera picked it up. It's hard to tell whenever the exhaust is so loud, but yeah. Go ahead and put this down and step into the inside. It is a little bit of a reach, but it's just cool. It has a clamshell hood. Who doesn't love that? And you just drop it and it kind of slams. So as you can probably tell by the gauges, I dropped the car back into normal mode, and so that should have closed the valve in the exhaust, and you can hear how much of a sound difference it makes. Kind of aim this back there. So the exhaust valve in this car is kind of funky, and really has a mind of its own, honestly. But it's a Jag. You kind of expect that. It's just a British sports car, and it's weird. But now it's in dynamic mode, so let's take a listen to it now. So yeah, as you can tell, it's quite loud, and that is 100% factory exhaust, factory cats, everything. This thing, it screams when you're on it. It pops like a popcorn machine whenever you let off. It's just amazing. The sounds that it gives you whenever you're in manual mode and whenever you upshift, it sounds like it has the DSG kind of farts or burps. If that makes any sense, most of you probably know exactly what I'm talking about. And it just sounds really cool. Even my mom, anytime she gets in this car, she immediately throws it in manual mode just because it's so entertaining. But yeah, the interior of this car is definitely not the best spec as far as F-Types go. It doesn't have the extended leather pack with like the leather headliner or anything. And honestly, I don't think I would want the leather headliner. I would want the full glass roof, just because the inside of this car is very small and it's very dark, and it can feel a little cramped for sure, but it's a 2-seater sports car. You kind of expect that going into it. So taking a look at the gauge cluster, very simple gauges. I believe these gauges, either the gauges or the center little display here have been changed since the 2015 model year, and I think it's this center display here. They are a little bit different. You have engine temperature bar right there and fuel gauge right there. The air vents that do pop up whenever you turn the air off and on or you start the car. So that's pretty cool. The infotainment system is better than it was in our Range Rover, which it was also a 2015. I don't know how. This is our third Jaguar Land Rover product, which you'd think we'd learn our lesson by now, but clearly we haven't. The 2012 XF that we had, this was crap. The stereo was crap, this was crap, everything was crap about the infotainment. It sucked. The Range Rover, this was a little bit better, but it was still pretty crap, and the stereo was still crap. It did not have the upgraded Meridian stereo, but this one does. You can tell by that right there. And this stereo actually bumps pretty good. It sounds very crisp, very clear, good bass, good clarity all the way through the sound range. So you have these hard buttons right here on the side. You can turn your screen off and on, and whenever you hit the power button once, you get this cool little F-type that pops up. And then screen goes completely away. Then you can turn your parking sensors off and on right here. Climate controls, which you can see it is a little bit delayed, but you know, it's whatever. Mode for your stereo, phone, your audio video input, and then your nav. I don't think we've ever used the nav in this car because we always just use Waze or Apple Maps or Google Maps or whatever is the most convenient at the time. So this one does have the configurable dynamic mode, which is pretty cool. Suspension, steering, all that is in dynamic. The only thing that's in normal is the gear shift, because for some reason, whenever you put the gear shift mode in dynamic and you're upshifting manually, it doesn't pop and fart as much as it does whenever it's in normal mode, which is weird. I don't get it, I can't explain it, but it's the thing. You have a lap timer, which is pretty cool. Then you have a G-force meter, which I didn't even know that was I didn't even know that was there. And then you have your throttle and brake position. So as you can see, as I put the brake and the gas, it has a little graph there, which is pretty cool. I didn't even know that was there. The more you know. But you can see it's kind of slow. You can configure your ambient lighting setup, which is pretty cool. Whenever the car is in dynamic mode, which is all the time, the ambient lighting is actually red. So that's pretty neat. And then otherwise it's just kind of like a soft white pinkish color, but I think you can configure the colors if you want to. This right here was a purchase not long after we bought the car, because we knew that whoever was driving it was probably gonna need it, because it's pretty hard to keep your foot out of this car. It's a Uniden R3. It's irritating as all get out. I personally like my Escort 9500 iX more because it seems to filter out false signals more. This thing is beeping and chiming and squawking all the time, and it's really irritating, but it's very effective. Knock on wood. Drive mode selector, gear shift, climate controls with big old hazards toggle right there in the center. 12 volt. This is the power and volume knob for your stereo. Exhaust mode, which oddly enough, some of the F-types came optioned without the variable mode exhaust. Why would you do that? This car sounds amazing. Let it open up. Traction control off. Never have touched that because I don't want to wrap this car around a tree or anything like that. It does have start stop, but whenever you have the car in manual mode, which is always for us, the start stop does not work. And then you have your spoiler button for putting it in cleaning mode only, which is dumb. And speaking of dumb, there's a dum-dums right there in this little storage tray. It does have an electronic parking brake. Taking a look at the center console, it is all wrapped in leather, as is the dashboard all the way across, which is very nice. It continues all the way across the doors. This is all padded and leather. 3-person memory, 8,000 way adjustable seats, power door locks, Meridian sound, which again sounds great. The subwoofers are actually behind the driver's seat and passenger seat. Automatic up and down windows, power folding mirrors, as well as power mirrors, and then your door handle. And that's about all the door panel needs. You do have some pretty tiny but somewhat useful storage trays right here in the door panel. There's definitely room enough for an umbrella, as Mom has stuffed in there. One thing that did take some getting used to is the door sill in this car is quite wide. That is kind of frustrating and definitely takes some getting used to. I have pretty big hands, and you can see I can't wrap my hands all the way around it. All I can get is this part right here. But really, once you're used to it, it's not that bad. The car is kind of hard to get in and out of, but it's a sports car. What do you expect? As far as wear and tear goes, the driver's seat has... Oh my gosh, shut up, car. The driver's seat has started to wear a little bit right here. That's just from getting in and out, or more like falling in and climbing out is what it feels like. It's not bad yet, but I can definitely tell that as time goes on, it's going to continue to get worse and it may eventually have to be reupholstered, which is frustrating, but it is what it is. This one does have these seats, whatever these are called. I don't think these are the base seats, but I don't think they're the fully upgraded seats either. If you see like lines or anything that looks wet, I leather conditioned the seats earlier, so that's what all that is. It'll dry up here in just a little bit. You do have a little storage tray right up here, which is a bit useless. I mean, you can stuff a bag in there if you need to. Another thing that I thought was pretty cool is you can actually see some of the chassis stiffening braces right there, which is pretty neat. Glove box, press this button on the dashboard and it opens it. It's decent enough. There's the owner's manual, and it's a pretty big owner's manual book. You could definitely get some more crap in there if you needed to, but you're not going to get a whole lot in there. And the lid's kind of heavy. If I had to start nitpicking this car, I would say that the fit and finish is probably not all that wonderful. Whenever you grab onto things, you can just kind of hear it just creaks a little bit. And that's been the case with all of our Jaguar Land Rover products. I don't know why that is, but it does. You do have two cup holders right here, and they're actually really good sized cup holders, but you can fit 2 American sized drinks in there just fine. Leather stitch center armrest actually is very comfortable. Center console is very tiny. You're not gonna get a whole lot in there. It's just, yeah, there's my hand, and you could not get another one of my hand in there. It's very cramped, but you do have another 12 volt, another USB, or a USB, and an auxiliary input, which is nice, I guess. There's not a lot of storage space in this car. So I guess to wrap up the video, we'll take a look at the storage area back here. This one does not have the power assisted rear cargo cover or trunk lid or whatever you want to call it. It's more of like a hatch type thing. And it is pretty narrow. You're not going to get anything real wide in there, but I think that's part of what creates such an aesthetically pleasing design on the back of this car. If it did have the power assisted tailgate, it would be right there, but this one's a decently low option F-Type, but it has all the things that you need and definitely has more than what you need. But yeah, you do have a removable cargo cover right here, which is nice. That way nobody can be sticking their head in and trying to figure out what you've got in the back of your car. There's the front license plate, because it is not on the front of the car, because that should be a sin. You do have actually no, that is a fix-a-flat kit right there. And then you have 2 tie downs, which are pretty nice. I don't really know what you're gonna do with those right there, but you can secure some stuff on those, which is nice. And then if you lift up this, which is kind of hard to do and clunky, there's no real place for that to go either, which is annoying. You do have another little storage tray down here, and I believe the battery is right up underneath this panel right here. I'm not going to pull it off just because there's a lot going on back here, and everything gets kind of fiddly like that. But yeah, you could probably fit 1 medium to large size suitcase back there, and you could fit probably 3 duffel bags or so. So if you pack wisely, you could definitely do a 4 or 5 day road trip in this car. I think you'd be fine. The washer bottle is right back here for weight distribution purposes, so that's pretty neat. The only thing that we've done to the car is we have had the windows tinted, and then we put the Jaguar plate frame on there. I don't expect any modifications to come for this car at all. It doesn't need it. The car is amazing. I love it, and I want one. I have to have one of my own at some point. This is miles per gallon is infinite in this car. It's great, and actually the miles per gallon is pretty good as well. In town it gets like 18-ish, driving it pretty aggressively, and then on the highway it does close to 30, so not bad. But anyway, I guess that wraps up this video. I appreciate you guys sticking through with me rambling a little bit like this, but I just figured I would give you an introductory tour to the car, and expect a driving video to be coming soon. I'll get some GoPro stuck to it and record some exhaust sounds, and yeah. Anyway guys, take care, and we will catch you next time.